皆様こんばんは。国際平和映像祭代表の関根と言います。今日はこんなにも多くの方にお集まりいただいて本当に素晴らしいなと思いますけれども、国際平和映像祭は毎年9月21日国連が決めたピースデーに開催しています。
そんな時にある人に社会が変わらないなんていうのはただの諦めだと言われたことがあります。
活動は6つ行います。具体的な取り組みの中で一番メインになるのは1番の自転車リレーになります。
教授が中心となって活動している NPO の事務局員をしております須田と申します。今日はよろしくお願いします。
拍手でお迎えください。84歳のご高齢ですけど、とっても元気に今日もいろんなプログラム過ごさせていらっしゃいました。今後日本がどう世界に平和ということで貢献できるかというタイトルで、小1時間ほどお話しいただきます。
I have been asked to answer a question. What can Japan, the state of Japan, do for peace? And the answer is very simple. Nothing. Japanese foreign policy is decided by United States of America. United States of America is not interested in solving problems. It's interested in victory. So my lecture was relatively short, and you can go home now. But if we change the question a little bit, what could an independent, sovereign Japan do for peace? Not a country de facto occupied by United States of America. You all know the heliport at a certain building in Roppongi, where the micromanagement of Japan is taking place by the USA. Imagine Japan as a sovereign, independent country. It would still have conflict with Russia over the northern territories. It would have conflict with China over Senkaku, with the two Chinas, not only Beijing but also Taipei. It would have conflicts with Korea, the two Koreas, not only Seoul, also Pyongyang over Takashima. It would still have the traumas of the past with the Koreas, let us say about comfort women, with Beijing, China, let us say about Nanjing. They are there in the background, in the underground. It's a question of reconciling. And if you change the question in another direction, what can Japanese civil society do for peace? Not very much, but something. I'll come to the answers, but first, one little point about the United States of America. It has intervened militarily 248 times since 1805, about 78 times since Second World War. In some of them, they have used the formula human security, in the name of human security. The number of people killed by USA after the Second World War is somewhere between 18 and 20 million. Probably 1 million in Iraq, where Japan was in the coalition of the willing. The Bill of National Security will be passed by the upper house and will become Japanese policy. From the point of view of North Korea and China, this is a major step up in the war preparedness of Japan. They will take another step. Japan will take a step. US, they will take a step. We're heading for an arms race, and arms races tend to lead to war. Now, please pay attention to one little point. Japan invaded Korea twice and China twice. Korea has never invaded Japan. China has never invaded Japan. For Korea, it was Shogun Hideyoshi and Emperor Meiji. For China, it was Shogun Hideyoshi and Emperor Showa. Who do you think has most reason to be afraid? Could it be that North Korea knows where the American nuclear bombs are located in South Korea and have developed nuclear capacity to defend itself? Second prognosis, one is arms race. Why does the United States want Japanese support? In NATO it has English support, but not German, French, and only partially Italian. The other big countries in Western Europe are protesting, saying no to the United States. They want Japan to help them beating the Islamic State. They are extremely brutal, Islamic State. But I do not belong to those who think it is worse to cut the head off 100 person than kill 100,000 or 1 million by bombing. The number for Afghanistan is about 100,000 and for Iraq about 1 million. Okay, Japan joins in the war against the Islamic State. They are extremely brutal, but they have a dream. And people who have a dream are strong. Their dream is to recreate the caliphate that was destroyed by England and France in 1924. When you look at the killing in Iraq, maybe they are taking revenge, and maybe they think they are moderate, only killing, let us say, 100. So, my dear ladies and gentlemen, dear audience for peace, go ahead with this, and you will get revenge on Japanese. You will get revenge in Japan. They know where Japan is located. They know what the Japanese flag looks like. Kill one, and you'll get 10 new ones. I do not think this will last. I think the Japanese people will wake up. So how do you avoid war? You avoid war by identifying the conflict and solve the conflict. How do you solve the Senkaku Diaoyu problem? Japan says it's mine. Beijing says it's mine. By owning it together as joint property. Having a joint commission for the administration of Senkaku Diaoyu, with 40% of the income to Japan, 40% to China, 20% for the ecology of Senkaku, to keep the fish and so on. Why does the United States not permit it? Because they want to keep Senkaku as an issue in order to stimulate Japanese panic and Japanese armament. I'm a professional mediator. I've been working on this for the last 65 years. I have a little bit of experience from 200 conflicts. I gave a talk about this in Nanjing. And I suggested joint ownership of Senkaku. Who was in front of me? The 200 leading historians and international law experts on the China Sea. How did they react to my proposal? They stood up, standing ovation. They came to me afterwards and said, "We are ashamed. None of us has ever thought such a creative idea." Now, the official Beijing line is hard line. There is a soft line underneath. An independent Japan could search for the soft line. A Japan that is a client of the United States just hanging here is not permitted. How do we solve the northern territories? The Japanese position is Japanese sovereignty, it's part of Japan. The Russian position is it's Russian sovereignty, not because we took it, but it was given to us by Yalta Potsdam. And if you want to know who gave it to us, it was the US president. What's the solution? Joint sovereignty, but give one island to the Ainu. An independent Japan would have a look at the map and discover, my lord, we are located in East Asia. We are not a part of California. Now, European countries did something in 1958. They established something called the European Community. And Europe had a much worse history than East Asia, much, much worse. They got the European Community. Today, war is unthinkable in Europe. It has been a success. An independent Japan would keep the best possible relations to the United States of America, but at the same time start thinking of a Northeast Asian community. They would bicycle to Brussels, an independent Japan. They would bicycle to Brussels to find out how the European community. They would talk about community security, not military security, which leads to arms races and may lead to devastating wars and don't solve anything. What would be the center? The center. Not Beijing or Shanghai, not Tokyo or Fukuoka. The center could be Okinawa as a special prefecture serving as a headquarters of the Northeast Asian community. The old kingdom of Ryukyu, conquered by Japan in 1872, made into a prefecture. 74% of the US bases in Japan are in Okinawa. Should there be a war, the first place to be destroyed would be Okinawa-ken. A Northeast Asian community would be run according to the principle one state, one vote. Decisions would be made by consensus. They would discover more and more things that they could solve better together than each one alone. This is the direction in which peace is located. Can you do it nonetheless, even if the United States doesn't like it? United States wants Japan to cooperate because they are used to Japan saying, hi, 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 hi. My prediction is that the national bill of insecurity, as I call it, will not succeed. And it will become evident, it will be passed as Japanese law, no doubt about that. And it is not an interpretation of A9, it's a violation of A9. It's exactly the opposite of A9. But because of A9, the Japanese peace movement hasn't developed any peace thinking. There should be oceans of ideas about how to solve the conflicts, much better than my ideas. I know Japan since 1968. I have been here about 60, 70 times. I know the country, as well as many Japanese. I haven't from any opposition party, including DPJ, ever heard and seen a well-thought-through alternative. Nor from academics. When it comes to international affairs, they teach American things. So let's ask the question, how do we make peace? Here is a formula for peace. P equals, and then comes a fraction. You have all been to high school. This is called the numerator. This is the denominator. There are two factors in each, they're multiplied. This one is called cooperation with equity. Equity means mutual and equal benefit. This one is called harmony. With empathy. You bicycle to Pyongyang, you bicycle to Beijing. You ask for 15 minutes, or half an hour in the foreign ministry to talk with somebody. How do you look at us? And you will find what you always find in human affairs, some true points and much nonsense. If you look at what Japan thinks about North Korea and Beijing, you find exactly the same. But imagine you manage this, cooperation with equity, harmony with empathy. You have already managed a lot. However, but what? Trauma and conflict. To build peace, there are 4 jobs to do. Solve conflicts, reconcile trauma, comfort women, Nanjing. Try to understand how the other side sees the situation. You don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree, but it's your damn job to know it. Look at something good in the other side and something good in yourself and build cooperation on that. Okay, it took me 60 years to develop this formula. You got it in 5 minutes, which is unjust. I'm not asking you to agree with me, I'm asking you to try to understand. Now, how do we go about mediation? How do we do it? Again, you do 4 things. So we make a little table, and this is the future, and this is the past. This is the positive side, and this is the negative side. Then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I have done it hundreds, maybe 1,000 times. We even have it as a carpet you can put on the floor. Children love it. I've had a foreign minister of a small European countries walking the mat. 1, 2, 3. So what are the questions I ask that correspond to 1, 2, 3, and 4? Number 1, what is the East Asia you would like to see? I'll tell you one answer I got once. I won't tell you in which country, about Japan. Japan goes back to Tokugawa as soon as possible. The best Japan has ever done, stick to itself. I do not agree, but it's very interesting to know. Maybe Ieyasu had a point back in 1603. Now, two. This is what you would like to see happen. Two, what is happening? For one, they are stuttering. They don't quite find the words. For two, they talk very fluently of how bad the others are. Beijing and North Korea will tell you how bad Japan and the United States are. South Korea will tell you how bad North Korea and China and Japan are. What will Taiwan say? Japan was not so bad at all. It was better than Chinese rule. What does Russia say? Okay, we were beaten by Japan in 1904-05. We are not going to give up what was our right to have. We go to point 3. Was there a better period in the past? The good in the past, the positive in the past. Some Japanese will think, they may not say it because it's not permitted to say it. Yes, it was better in the past when we were running the whole thing. Yes, we occupied, but we did not colonize in the Western sense. We Japanized. When the West colonized, it put the colonies at the bottom of the world. And they're still there. When Japan Japanized, it shared its economy with the territories they Japanized. Already in the 1970s, 80s, 4 of them, just only 4, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, were competing and beating Japan. The Chinese economic system is not Marxist. They learned very much from Japan, but have never had the courage to acknowledge it. Number 4, the negative future. What is the worst thing that can happen? Japan would say, China goes to war. They conquer not only Senkaku, but Okinawa. And they have charted in the Chinese Sea, expanding into the sea. China says, United States will now attack China, including possibly with nuclear weapons, but the attack will come from Japan, so that China will attack Japan instead of the United States. Okay, says the mediator. Thank you so much. Could we take number 1 again? What's the best thing that can happen? Let us say that I have done this 1,000 times. And Transcend has the organization, the NGO that I founded in 1993, has a track record. We have solved 35 conflicts quite well. You don't solve conflicts by taking care of refugees. That's a humanitarian action. You solve conflicts by solving the problem that drove the refugees away. During these 70 years, I haven't seen Japan solving a single conflict of importance. So I have given you one formula for peace, 4 jobs to do. I've given you a little scheme, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is Japan good at and what is Japan bad at? If we look at 1, 2, 3, 4, Japan is very good at number 4, the worst possible case. I remember the first time I landed at a Japanese airport and asked how much time it would take to the center. The answer was that can take very long time because there will be a jam, a traffic jam. They didn't exactly say there could be a tsunami, but they were very close to think. We call that worst case analysis. But Japan is also very good at something. Overcoming contradictions, eclecticism, solving conflict inside Japan, combining the Japanese and the Western. Early Meiji inviting experts from England, France, Germany, especially England, Germany, US, to teach what they know. Paying them very well with the understanding that now your job is over, will you please be so kind and go back to your home country. China learned that from Japan. When China in 1980 started economic growth, Japan has talents that could be put to good use in international affairs if Japan were an independent country. What can Japanese civil society do? What can Japanese students do? Prepare yourself for the day of independence. Explore the kinds of things that I have mentioned and do it much better. I'm sure you have much better ideas than I have. Or you have other ideas and one idea doesn't exclude the other. In the other room next to this one, a couple of hours ago, a lawyer proposed civil society taking over Senkaku. My comment was that I don't think you can have civil society being a sovereign owner of territory. But imagine joint Japanese-Chinese ownership and civil society using the islands for summer camps, for swimming, for ecology. Chinese civil society and Japanese civil society. Do the same in Takeshima with North Korean civil society, South Korean civil society. What do we have those territories for? To use them. Not just to own them, but to use them. Dear students particularly, prepare yourselves. Find out what Islam is about before you think that Islamic State is your enemy. You might argue that the self-defense forces could have a purely defensive role, and I would agree. But train yourself as a mediator. You don't train yourself by solving Takeshima Senkaku. That's a little bit advanced. You train yourself by helping your friends with a quarrel, by solving problems between a girl and a boy, in a couple, in a family, solving problems at school, bullying. You start at the micro level. We in Transcend, www.transcend.org, and you'll find quite a lot of things. We are mediating in situations like East Asia, between North and South, East and West, and in Norwegian kindergartens between 3-year-old kids. So imagine two small boys with a teddy bear, and they're fighting over the teddy bear. One boy sounds like Tokyo and says, "It's mine." The other boy sounds like Beijing and says, "It's mine." We have trained the kindergarten teacher how to handle it. Don't scold. Quietly, softly. Tell them that in this kindergarten we don't shout, we don't fight. Comma, but what's the problem? He thinks it's his when it is mine. And the kindergarten teacher says, "I'll tell you one thing. It's neither yours nor yours, it belongs to the kindergarten. Put the teddy bear in the center of a table and sing for the teddy bear. Share the teddy bear, dance around the table. Teddy bear will enjoy it." In the kindergarten and schools where we have been operating, the teachers, practically speaking, use no time for discipline. They can use the time for teaching and training. And you will find that children learn it much more quickly than adults. And imagine now that these two boys grow up and one becomes foreign minister in Beijing and the other one becomes foreign minister in Tokyo. So I would of course hope that they would say, none of them would say it's mine, they would say it's ours. Thank you.
どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。
こちらの方まで空いております。
What can we do to overcome the politicians who do not care about?
の方からはいくつかの代表的な、質問をそのまま読みたいと思います。まず、今の安保法案の件に関してデモ以外にどうしたら安保法案を廃案できるでしょうか。そもそも平和とは何か、平和学とは何かということを簡単に説明していただきたいという、国連とかですね、国連はまず平和を作れるかという問題、それから、世界連邦の問題ですね。世界連邦をガルトング先生はどういうふうに考えられているかという、そういう質問がいくつかありました。で、最後に9条の問題ですけれども、 救助に頼りすぎず、かつ救助を尊重する平和的貢献というものはどういうものがあるか、そういう質問です。以上、私からは以上です。最初に答えていただくのは、独立国日本になるためにはどうしたらいいかっていう、そこから始めたいと思います。
Behave independently. LDP Kome will not do it. Try to encourage another party to take independent steps. I have indicated a lot of things that can be done and should be done. Don't have anybody tell you there are no alternatives. There are plenty of alternatives. To quote Gandhi, be the future you want to see. If you want independence, behave independently. Bicycle to Beijing and ask them what do they think of joint ownership of Singapore. I myself am a former bicyclist. I love bicycles, but bicycle to the correct place.
次は、平和教育というものがどういうふうにあるべきかっていうそういう問題です。
Education.
About peace education.
Well, you know my answer. The answer is that formula. It's not the question of reading big books. And the best way of education for peace is to practice it. Practice it in daily life. Family, at school, at work. Have a dialogue with the bully. Why did you do it? And you will be surprised by the answers. To conclude, start at the micro level with practice, gain experience, read about the other levels and learn more. If anybody teaches you big theory, then ask that person, how did it work in practice when you practiced it? If that person has no practice, the person should not teach education for peace.
次は、ちょっと具体的な問題に入りまして、そのデモ以外にどうしたら安保法案をその廃案にできるか。How to stop the security law without other than making demonstrations.
You are in a very serious situation. Demonstrations don't make any impact. I'll tell you what situation you are in. Prime Minister Abe has not interpreted A9. He has violated an article in the Japanese constitution. And I say this, being a foreigner, a person who violates the constitution is normally put to trial in a court. I know perfectly well it will not happen, because there is not rule of law in Japan, there is rule of United States of America. Nevertheless, you should demand it, and those who demand it will be supervised by the police, by the secret police. Take that risk.
次はその芸術というものがその平和に対してどういう貢献をできるか、そういう問題。
In about 1643, there was a Muslim ruler in a small state in India called Ibrahim Shah II. He was a musician, a poet, a dancer, a singer. And he had two ideas of art for peace. The first one is obvious. The second one is new for you. When an audience listens or watches a good piece of art, they are lifted to a higher level. And in this higher level, they look at each other and find each other. Art unites, whether it is Japanese music or rock. But he had an additional idea. And that idea was to create new forms of art, bringing cultures together. For instance, Arab poetry to Hindu music. So that Muslims and Hindus could find themselves in harmony with the other. The artist would have to make a harmonical combination. He was globalizing art. Very interesting. If you are an artist, find an artist from another culture and practice the Japanese talent for eclecticism.
次は世界連邦をどう思うかっていう質問です。
I do not think it's a good idea. It's very old-fashioned peace thinking. We are not ready for a world central government, which is a federation. It would be too much power in one place, and I know who would occupy that power. The dividing factor is civilization, culture. We understand too little of each other. But what we can have are regions basically with one civilization, or regions with so many civilizations that they cannot act in a dangerous way. The European Union is based on Christianity and secularism. The Latin American Caribbean Union is based basically on Christianity, particularly Catholic. The African Union has so many cultures that there is no common factor. The same for ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian. The East Asian community would be based on Confucianism and Buddhism and Chinese history. The Russian is different. But you can have one that is different. Japan has something potentially dangerous, Shinto. As a former Japanese prime minister put it, Japan is a divine country centered on the emperor. In the afternoon, he was no longer emperor, but there is something problematic about Japan. There is something problematic about China. It's too China-centric. The only thing that matters in the world is China, but they are trying to break out of it. Imagine you had 7, 8 regions in the world. To me, united regions as a confederation would be a good answer, better than world federalism of states. You don't have to abolish United Nations. It doesn't work because of the veto powers, but you could have united regions next to it.
それでは最後の質問なんですが、それ自体は9条に頼りすぎず9条を尊重する平和貢献はっていうちょっと内容がややこしいのでちょっと変えてですね9条の可能性というか the possibility of Article 9 in the world.
You are of course aware that right now Article 9 does not exist. It has been violated by the Prime Minister of the country.
1 and 2 both.
But it is still in the Constitution.
1 and both.
Article 9.1 is a very strong statement against war. It is still in writing in the Constitution. It's still valid Japanese Constitution. How fantastic it would be if a Japanese political party could have the courage to say, Article 9.1 for all the states in the world. Make Article 9.1 the normal country. That you renounce war as an instrument. You don't go to war. You may defend your territory, but you don't go to war. 9.2 is more problematic. It's not only anti-war, it's against all arms. I think we need some non-offensive, non-provocative, short-range arms to defend territories for UN peacekeeping operations. And I'll tell you one thing. If people are locked and blocked in a conflict and don't see any way out and don't have any arms, they will find a kitchen knife, a fork, or an axe, and they will start hacking at each other. You simply have to solve the underlying conflict. Japanese have to learn to identify the conflicts and to be creative solving them. But let me add one point. There are 26 countries in the world, mainly small islands with no arms. It's 15% of the UN membership. The one best known in Japan is Costa Rica. It's a little bit dubious. The militia is a little bit too strong. But let's leave that aside. The basic point about these 26, they have no arms and they have never been attacked. My recommendation for Japan would be, for some period, to transarm, to have only defensive arms, and then gradually join the 26 countries.
はい、どうもありがとうございました。会場からはもっともっとたくさんの質問をいただいてたあそこに貼ってあるんですけれども、ちょっと時間の関係と我々選ぶのがちょっと大変だったっていうこともあって、これだけの質問で終わらせていただきます。
OKですか？じゃあ